Eternal Poison. It's such an underrated tactical RPG for the PlayStation 2, and one of the best parts of the game is its characters, each having different strengths and weaknesses for their own respective storylines. Now, let me get a few things out of the way here. First off, this list is going to have some spoilers to the game, so it's best to avoid this video if that's something that concerns you. Secondly, I won't be including mercenaries since they don't have much in personality, plus their levels and equipment don't transfer over in New Game Plus. And lastly, I will only be focusing on 10 characters from the 3 main stories, so I won't be including Rondimian or the Count. With that being said though, the Count is just okay in both magic and attack, while Rondimian is an absolute badass who completely destroys on the battlefield. Now, the way I'll be ranking these characters is based upon how much I like to use in the game and how much I like their personalities. Also, this list is simply my own opinion. With that being said, let's get this countdown started. Glen is the worst character in the game. Okay, I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. Glen is a member of Ashley's party. In fact, he's a childhood friend of Ashley's. He definitely cares about her, but can get a bit overprotective and kind of annoying. During the events of the game, it is revealed that he had accepted an assassination mission on Ashley's old master Leto. However, it turns out that he only accepted the mission to help warn and protect Leto from the Pope's plans. Which is great and all, but his constant distrust of Rana got my nerves, and throughout most of the story, all he does is complain and act like a complete pain. Gameplay wise, he isn't that great either. Glen's weapon of choice is a spear, which is cool and it's a good piercing weapon that can hit 2 enemies at once. However, Glen's attack is quite low. He also has some rather questionable spells and skills. I mean, his crow's beak attack is great, as well as his increase in evasion and accelero for increasing a character's speed. But his earth spells like Terra aren't that great, especially since he has low magic. Glen isn't that useful until he reaches class change at level fucking 12. He can choose between a Mystic, which is a magic class that gets useless spells, or a Slayer, which is a more melee class. Of the two, Slayer is definitely better since he becomes stronger and gets a physical resistance skill, which at least makes him okay at best. In the end though, I really don't like Glen in both personality and gameplay. He just plain sucks. Okay, so Glen sucks, but to be fair, Retic isn't much better. Retic is a member of Tage's party, and not by choice, as he's forced into her group due to a controlling spell that she cast on him. However, he did want to enter Besic to kill the Majin since his mother was killed by a Majin. Eventually, you learn that Retic is a heretic, who is someone who is both half human and half Majin, his mother being human and his father being Majin, as well as the Majin who killed his mother. Being a heretic also means going further into Besic seems to hurt him, so his backstory gives him a reason to hate Majin. However, his constant bickering with Rocky gets annoying, and he often complains a lot more than I'd like. Gameplay wise, he's just okay at best. Retic uses both longbows and shortbows, which is great for hitting enemies from a distance, but isn't very strong. But strength isn't his strong point. He's actually more of a healer as he gets some decent healing spells, which are pretty helpful early on. Plus, he does have the rapid fire attack, which can do some damage to enemies, even if he can't use it very often. The 2 classes he can become are the Cursed one, which is more of a Dark Mage class, or the Serene one, which is more of a healing class. Yeah, without a doubt, I prefer the Serene one, since you get nice recovery spells and even earn some water attacks. Retic is just best kept by Rocky, ironically, to help him pick off weakened enemies and to heal Rocky. I find Retic to be an okay healer, and the idea of a healer who uses a bow is a cool idea and has potential. With Retic though, it just wasn't quite reached. So speaking of healers, let's talk about LaVon. LaVon is a priest who is highly trusted by the Pope. In fact, he's the Pope's favorite. He's one of the members of Olefin's party. However, he was not there because of Olefin's choice. Because of his connection to the Pope, LaVon isn't very trusted at first by the team, but his rather surprisingly large knowledge of Besic proves to be helpful. He's a pretty timid kid and is always willing to prove himself to Olefin. However, aside from that, he doesn't have much of a personality, which isn't all that bad since I certainly don't hate him. Gameplay wise, well, he's a healer. He starts off with staffs for bashing, but he's super weak in strength, which is why he has so many different spells to use. There's a healing spell, buffing spells to resist physical and magical attacks, and even offensive spells like Skara for light damage and Terra for earth damage. Class change, he can become a druid class or a prophet class, both of which allow him to equip maces. The druid class focuses more on earth-based spells and increases his strength, which is kinda pointless considering how low his attack starts off with, while the prophet class gives LaVon some more healing and buffing spells like Magus Wall. Because LaVon is such a good support character, I prefer to have him as a prophet. There really isn't much more to LaVon than him being a very good and useful healer, as that is what I had him do when I played through the game, especially since he can use healing spells so many times. And here is our first leader character on the list, Olefin. Olefin is the commander of the Valdian Knights and is in love with Princess Loesch. Upon Loesch entering Besic, Olefin quickly takes his companions with him to save her from the home of the Majins. However, his dedication to saving Loesch ends up making him quite rude to his companions, as he will often get upset if any of them slow him down. Because of this, he can come off as a real asshole and can be quite frustrating at times. But there are two good things about this. First off, he is quite understanding when it comes to Loesch, who is his best friend and is someone who he cares about. And secondly, Olefin's story is about him becoming a better leader, so it feels quite good to see him come to terms with his mistakes and work towards becoming a true leader. Despite this, I really don't find Olefin that interesting of a character. He's not bad, but he's certainly not all that great. Gameplay-wise, Olefin is more of a melee character. He starts off with both a sword for slashing damage and a rapier for piercing damage, which gives him an advantage over enemies weak to these types of attacks. Plus, he can do some nice damage too. To make things even better, Olefin can increase his speed and the speed of other characters with Accelerio, and of course his Everthrust attack is a great rapier attack. For class changes, we have the Templar class or the Avenger class. The Avenger class is for more of a magic class, giving Olefin some wind-based spells, which isn't really all that great. I mean, Olefin's magic stat really isn't anything worth writing home about, plus wind magic isn't one of the more useful elements. The Templar class, however, focuses more on melee attacks and even increases his evasion. So yeah, I prefer the Templar as it fits Olefin more, and that dual attack can be pretty helpful against stronger enemies. Of the lead characters, Olefin is the weakest of the main three, but he still isn't that bad. Now for the White Wolf Majin himself, Rocky. Rocky is a member of Tage's party. He starts off as a companion to Tage, trying to help her get further into Besic for his own purposes. While he is a Majin, he does seem to have this aura of respect to him, probably because he's a well-known Majin, called the Silver Wolf, who once tried to destroy the world. This does make him a bit untrustworthy, but he's quite loyal to Tage, and is quite stern with Retic. He also has a great design, and he only attacks humans if he has reason to do so, and he's definitely smarter than most other Majin. There isn't too much more to his character, but he's quite interesting and memorable. Now, because Rocky is a Majin, he doesn't equip weapons. Instead, he uses bite attacks for piercing and claw attacks for slashing. So, much like Olefin, this gives him some variety with melee combat. Plus, his strength is pretty good as well. In fact, he's pretty good for close combat, since he can inflict enemies with bleeding, which is a great status that hurts enemies every time they move and attack. His evasion will also increase, and he will take damage for nearby allies, and thankfully he has lots of hit points and okay defense to complement this. For class changes, we have the Windrunner or the Storm Seer. Windrunner will further increase his evasion, give him a dual attack skill, and even a wind attack to complement his rather useless wind spell. So it focuses more on speed. Stormseer, on the other hand, gives Rocky some more status-inflicting moves, like Fear, which is a status that causes enemies unable to attack. He also gets an increase in strength. Both of these classes have some great benefits. Really, either one will do, it's simply up to you which one you like more. For my first run, I went with Stormseer simply for that increase in strength, as again, he's great for taking out enemies and is the only Majin I used in the game. Okay, typically I'm not a huge fan of heavy tank-like characters. Not to say that they're bad characters, just not ones that I find as useful or ones that I prefer to like to use. However, Loesch is pretty damn good. Loesch is a party member of Olefin's party. Actually, he's Olefin's best friend. They both trained as knights, with Loesch being an outstanding knight. However, it's Olefin who ended up becoming the commander. Despite this, Loesch is very confident in Olefin's ability to be a commander, and is always there to encourage him or give him advice. While in Besic, Loesch starts to lose his mind. This is because when he and Olefin were both knights, Loesch was sent to kill a dragon by himself and succeeded. During his battle with the dragon, some of Loesch's blood got mixed with the dragon's, which ends up having effect on him when in Besic. If you manage to kill the dragon in Besic, you will help return Loesch back to his level-headed self. Sure, Loesch isn't a very complex character, but I really like his knightly elements and his friendship with Olefin. Gameplay-wise, yeah, Olefin is a knight and is quite slow, and at first doesn't have the best movement, which only gets a little better. To make up for this, Loesch has pretty high strength, and very good defense combined with very high health, with his starting weapon being an axe. His natural skills simply increase his defense and give him more physical attacks. For class changes, we have the Enlightened or the Consumed. The Enlightened gains the ability to use greatswords and gives him extra physical and light resistance, while the Consumed gives him the ability to use spears and gives him extra magical and dark resistance. Both classes increase his evasion as well, so really it comes down to whether you want Loesch to be more able to resist physical attacks or magical attacks, or want a stab advantage or a slash advantage. Loesch is a pretty great heavy character. While he will need some support to make up for his weaknesses, he's still really effective. And now we have the best support character in the game, Ashley. Ashley is the second main character to appear on this list, and boy does she deserve to be this high. First off, she is the protector of the faith for the church, and is the sister to Loesch. She's a childhood friend of Glen's, and ever since she was training with Glen, she has been inflicted with a curse. This curse ends up giving Ashley a second persona that is far more aggressive and deadlier than her usual self. While in Besic, her persona ends up taking on its own form, which she has to fight to regain some peace in her life. However, her reason for entering Besic was to find Master Leto, who had left the church as he was worried it might be giving the Pope too much power. Upon finding Leto, she has to sadly watch him die, and decides to honor his death by putting an end to the disruption of Besic. Ashley is a kind and calm-hearted person who is willing to help others and listen to reason. She is rather likable in story, but she really proves herself in battle. Ashley is for the most part a support character who can equip both staffs and maces. The spells she gets naturally are great, as there are some healing spells, light magic spells, and some skills that give her some nice physical attacks. In fact, despite being a support character, she actually has some pretty good strength and is really capable of holding her own in battle. I've even managed to win a fight with her alone against 4 other enemies, and yeah, I wasn't doing very good at the beginning of that fight, but still she managed to prevail anyway. For class changes, we have the Matriarch or the Prodigy. The Matriarch gives her some extra healing spells and water spells, as well as increasing her magic. Prodigy, on the other hand, will give her a spell that will heal characters every turn for a certain amount of turns, and will also increase her physical attack, making her great against enemies who are weak to bashing attacks. Personally, I prefer Prodigy as it helps balance her out the most, and almost makes her a bit broken, but Matriarch is still pretty good. Ashley is both great for taking out certain enemies and for healing allies. She is easily one of the best support characters I've ever used in an RPG. And now for the best character from Ashley's party, Rana. Rana is an archer assigned to Ashley's party as she enters Besic as ordered by the Pope. Kind of. Okay, so let me get this out of the way here. Rana isn't his real name, nor is he even a girl. Okay, so it's kind of poorly explained, but the real Rana was killed and was found by, this guy, who decided to disguise himself as Rana to keep Ashley and Glen protected since the real Rana was ordered to kill Master Leto. However, this Rana, god this is getting confusing, is a more kind-hearted person. Though there is a lot of mystery surrounding him, he's actually quite likable and trustworthy, with only Glen not trusting him. Though this could be because Rana finds him a bit suspicious, and with good reason. That and Glen is just an annoying piece of shit. Gameplay-wise, Rana is also pretty good, as his starting weapon is the longbow, which gives him some great range as well as doing some good damage. Not only that, but Rana has some great movement and some good evasion skills, with even some decent fire spells. For class change, we have the Wanderer or the Flame Tongue. The Wanderer will be able to equip short bows, earn an increase in his evasion, and even stronger attacks, while the Flame Tongue will give Rana some extra fire spells, turning Rana into an archer mage. Personally, I prefer Wanderer since the evasion makes Rana much harder to hit, and the extra damage is great for hitting enemies from a distance. The Flame Tongue is still a pretty great class to help give some balance in magic, plus the idea of an archer mage is pretty awesome, and we need more of those in RPGs. In the end, Rana is a pretty great character. Now for the best character from Olefin's party, Marie. Okay, so let me just say that character-wise, Marie isn't super great. She's not bad at all, there just isn't too much to her character. It's hinted that she has fought in battles with Olefin before, which is why she joined him into Basic, and much like everyone else, she expects a lot of Olefin as a leader. There are some times where she questions Olefin's judgment and leadership skills, and to be fair, she does have some good points from time to time. She also tries to look out for everyone else's well-being, and maybe it's just me, but I kinda liked her and wanted to know a little bit more about her character. Gameplay-wise though, she's an amazing mage. She can equip both books referred to as Librams and staffs, as well as starting off with some great fire and wind spells. Fire being great since plenty of enemies are weak to fire, and Arrow 2 is capable of inflicting bleeding, which is also awesome. Not only does she have a great magic stat, she also has some decent movement and speed, making her really helpful on the battlefield. For class changes, we have the Crimson Mage or the Pale Mage. The Crimson Mage gives her 2 more powerful fire spells, as well as increasing her magic stat, while the Pale Mage earns her some extra wind spells and increases her evasion. Of the two, the Crimson Mage is far better, as the increase in her magic stat makes her long-range spells so much more destructive and useful. Pale Mage isn't awful, but just, and no pun intended here, pales in comparison to Crimson Mage. Overall, Marie is by far one of the best mage characters in the game, and is a real asset in Olefin's party. Okay, so by process of elimination, I'm sure those of you who have played the game know who my number 1 is, being the best main character, Tage. Tage is a mysterious witch who is allied with the Silver Wolf Majin, Rocky. She ventures into Basic with the desire to destroy the world with the power of the eternal poison. For the most part, Tage has a quite stern but calm personality, who seems to know more about the Majin and Basic than most others. While she plans to destroy the world, she is still rather likable since she never seems to hate anyone. The most interesting thing about Tage is her past life, as she is a reincarnation of Queen Tage, who had died at the hands of King Valdus, who had tried to use Tage as a vessel for Izel. This makes her technically the mother of Loesch and Ashley, and Tage killing Valdus as well as Izel, who ends up taking over Loesch's body, kinda brings some sort of peace to Tage. However, in the end, she still seems to have some further plans for the world. Gameplay-wise, Tage, as a witch, is a mage-based character who can equip both Librams and staffs. For spells that she will learn naturally, she can earn both some dark magic and fire magic, as well as a pretty strong physical attack. Tage is obviously great with magic, and not too bad with physical attacks herself. The thing that makes her so unique is her immunity to magic, which is awesome as it protects her from enemy spells. However, this also means she can't be healed with spells from your own allies, meaning you have to rely on items more for healing her, as well as Malice 2, which helps heal her when using the attack. For classes, we have the Hellcaster or the Flame Weaver, both being mage-like classes. Hellcaster will give Tage some more dark magic, as well as increase her physical attack, while Flame Weaver will give her some more fire-based spells, as well as increasing her magic. Of the two, Flame Weaver is the better class since fire magic is more often useful than dark. But I still really like the Hellcaster class, as dark magic is still pretty great. Tage is just a really awesome witch, and for me, the best character in the game. Well, I hope you enjoyed this list, even if number 1 was a bit predictable. For those of you who are fans of the game, please share your favorite characters in the comments below. I'm MCB the PS2 Gamer, and I'll see you all next time.